The world just watched the global financial map redraw itself in a single morning as a sudden peace deal in the Middle East sent oil prices into a freefall and pushed the stock market to levels we have never seen before. We are standing at a historic juncture on this Friday, April 17, 2026, where the sudden resolution of long-standing geopolitical hostilities has collided with a massive institutional shift at the Federal Reserve to create what I can only describe as a state of aggressive risk-on exuberance. For months, market participants have been playing defense, bracing for the next escalation or the next supply chain break, but that defensive posture has officially evaporated as the major indices shattered their all-time highs today. The catalyst for this sudden surge is impossible to ignore because it hits at the very heart of global trade: the reported ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon and the subsequent reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. If you think back to the beginning of 2026, the restricted access to this maritime choke point introduced a massive war premium into the cost of everything, driving oil prices toward peaks that felt unsustainable and throwing just-in-time supply chains into absolute chaos. But today, with the news that Iran has opened the strait to non-Iranian commercial vessels, that fear-driven overhang has been lifted, and the immediate reaction was a double-digit percentage drop in crude oil prices. This isn't just a win for diplomats, it is a fundamental shift in the global supply-side equation. To understand why the markets are reacting with such intensity, you have to look at the logistics of what just happened, because the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz forced the entire world to find incredibly expensive workarounds. We saw energy and agricultural products being redirected through the Panama Canal, causing massive bottlenecks and increasing transit times to a point where cash prices in Asia and Europe were wildly out of sync with the derivatives markets. Now, with traffic flowing through the Persian Gulf again, that pressure on alternative routes is going to vanish, and we can expect a restoration of energy and fertilizer exports from the United States to the markets that need them most in Asia and Europe. Trump has even stepped in to signal that an end to the war is finally in sight, calling it a principled agreement that allows for a 10-day period of focused diplomacy, which has served as the primary engine for this equity rally. The volatility in the energy sector today was truly historic, with WTI crude oil plunging over 12% and Brent crude dropping more than 10% in a single session. When you see oil prices drop by $11 a barrel in a few hours, you are looking at an immediate, though delayed, disinflationary pulse that is going to ripple through the entire global economy. It is fascinating to watch the prices adjust in real time, with gasoline and heating oil also seeing massive declines, while natural gas actually managed a slight gain. But there is a very strange paradox happening in the commodity world right now that we have to talk about, because while oil is crashing on the easing of geopolitical risk, gold is surging toward record highs. Usually, these two move in the same direction when fear is high, but today they are diverging. This tells us that the gold rally isn't really about immediate fear anymore. It's about a structural shift where the world is moving away from dollar-denominated assets, a trend that has been picking up speed for the last 2 years. While the energy markets were reset, the U.S. stock market indices responded with a broad-based rally that pushed the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ composite to brand new all-time closing highs. The NASDAQ, in particular, has been on a tear, completing its 12th consecutive winning session, which is its longest streak since 2009. What is even more interesting is how the rally is starting to broaden out beyond just the giant tech names. The Russell 2000, which tracks smaller companies, actually outperformed the bigger indices today with a gain of over 2%. This suggests that investors are starting to believe that lower energy prices and a more stable interest rate environment will benefit the smaller, domestically focused firms that have been struggling with high input costs and tight credit. However, we saw a very sharp divergence when we looked at the different sectors today. On one hand, you have information, technology, and consumer discretionary leading the way higher. But on the other, the energy sector faced its most significant daily decline in years, dropping over 4% as traders unwound the long positions they had held during the blockade. Financials also saw a nice boost, supported by strong earnings from heavyweights like State Street and BlackRock, which have both seen record assets under management and expanding margins. This earnings season is providing the proof that the artificial intelligence boom is much more than just a speculative bubble. It's a fundamental driver of corporate earnings and industrial productivity. TSMC, the company that acts as the sole foundry for the world's most advanced AI chips, reported first-quarter results that were absolutely staggering. Their revenue was up over 40% in US dollar terms, and their net income jumped by 58% year over year. When you look at their margins, a 66% gross margin and a 58% operating margin, you realize they have a level of pricing power that is almost unheard of in the manufacturing world. The data shows a massive shift in where the money is going. Their 3-nanometer and 5-nanometer technologies now account for over 60% of their total revenue. More importantly, the growth is moving away from smartphones and toward high-performance computing, which tells us that the technology sector is transitioning from a consumer-led phase to an enterprise infrastructure phase. This AI infrastructure ripple effect pushed companies like Oracle, Microsoft, Nvidia, and Amazon higher as risk sentiment improved. Oracle even jumped 3% on the day. But the rally wasn't universal, and we saw a major warning sign with Netflix. Even though they beat expectations on their top and bottom lines, their stock fell more than 10% because their future guidance fell short. This shows us that the bar for performance is incredibly high right now. Investors aren't satisfied with what you did yesterday. They are demanding aggressive future growth to justify these record-breaking valuations. Even with all this optimism from the peace deal, the underlying macroeconomic data in the U.S. is still telling a story of persistent inflation. The Producer Price Index for March came in at 4% year-over-year, which is a deceleration from the recent peaks but still significantly higher than the Federal Reserve's target. We are still seeing the hangover from the supply chain disruptions, with transportation and warehousing costs up over 6% and energy producer prices up over 11% compared to last year. These costs have been partially absorbed by companies that are seeing massive productivity gains, but they are still weighing on the margins of many industrial firms. The labor market is staying resilient, with 178,000 jobs added in March and the unemployment rate falling to 4.3%. But there is a catch. Real average hourly earnings actually decreased by nearly 1% because inflation is eating up every bit of the wage growth workers are seeing. You can see the disconnect in places like New Jersey, where the official word is that the economy is strong and stable. But the residents have a very gloomy view because they've spent years watching their purchasing power erode. Perhaps the biggest institutional development of the year so far is the nomination of Kevin Warsh to succeed Jerome Powell as the chair of the Federal Reserve this May. Warsh is known as a financial market whisperer with deep ties to Wall Street, and while he was historically seen as an inflation hawk, there is a lot of speculation that he might align with the president's desire for a more accommodative policy, what Trump calls rocket fuel for the economy. Warsh has been very critical of the current Fed leadership, arguing that they've drifted away from their core mandate. He wants to implement what he calls the family fight model, where they have open, unrecorded disagreements behind closed doors, but present a unified front to the public. He's also skeptical of forward guidance and the dot plot, and he wants to shrink the Fed's balance sheet, which could mean we see quantitative tightening even if interest rates go down. The politics surrounding this nomination are already getting intense. His confirmation hearing is set for April 21, but Senator Tom Tillis has vowed to block all Fed nominees until an investigation into the central bank's building renovation is finished. This political friction, combined with the president's threats to fire Jerome Powell before his term even ends, has injected a massive amount of uncertainty into interest rate projections. Right now, the market thinks there is almost no chance of a rate cut at the end of April, so everyone is looking to Warsh's testimony to see if the Fed will stay data-dependent or pivot toward a model that prioritizes growth and AI-driven productivity. Going back to that gold story, the performance of precious metals in 2026 has been nothing short of extraordinary. Gold hit an all-time high of over $5,500 an ounce back in January, and even though it pulled back slightly, it is still hovering around $4,800. The real driver here is sovereign purchasing and de-dollarization. For 3 years in a row, global central banks have been buying more than 1,000 tons of gold annually, which is more than double the historical average. This is a massive institutional signal that countries are trying to diversify away from Western financial systems, especially after seeing Russian reserves frozen and the recent sanctions related to the Middle East. Analysts at Goldman Sachs think gold will hit $5,400 by the end of the year, while Wells Fargo is saying it could reach $8,000 by 2027 if this currency devaluation valuation cycle continues. In the corporate world, we are seeing record revenues and expanding margins across multiple industries, not just in tech. BlackRock saw its assets under management rise to nearly $14 trillion, and they've seen a huge jump in performance fees, which means their actively managed strategies are hitting home. State Street also hit record revenue and returned over $600 million to shareholders through dividends and buybacks. Even in consumer goods, PepsiCo reported a 9% increase in earnings thanks to record productivity savings and strong international demand. Abbott Laboratories is also navigating its acquisition of Exact Sciences while expecting double-digit growth in its glucose monitoring sales. But even with all this recovery, there are some very strange risks popping up that we need to keep an eye on. We've seen convictions for insurance fraud involving staged bear attacks on luxury vehicles, which sounds like a movie plot but is a real issue for the automotive and insurance sectors. There have been massive recalls of toys due to battery hazards, and the upcoming World Cup is already causing price spikes, with transit tickets to the stadium projected to cost as much as $150. Most interestingly, trade groups are warning that advanced AI tools like Anthropic's Mythos could cause systemic financial disruption if they aren't regulated properly. Globally, the recovery is picking up speed. The Japanese Nikkei also hit record highs today, and Chinese GDP growth surged to 5%, which is a big boost for commodity exporting nations like Australia and New Zealand. The UK is seeing stronger growth than expected, even with some energy-related inflation. The whole world is essentially pricing in the belief that the war is over, and that a peace-related headline will be the primary momentum for equities going forward. As we look toward the rest of the second quarter, there are four major factors that will decide if this rally can last. First, we need a permanent peace agreement to truly remove that geopolitical risk premium. Second, the Kevin Warsh confirmation will be a defining moment for monetary policy. Any disruption there could trigger a correction. Third, we have to see if the lower oil prices actually show up in the inflation data for April and May, so the Fed can feel comfortable cutting rates. And finally, we need to see if the earnings momentum continues with reports from companies like Tesla, Boeing, and Intel. The market's performance today encapsulates the ultimate Goldilocks hope that the war is ending, the AI boom is real, and a market-friendly Fed is on the way. With the S&P 500 over 7,000 and the NASDAQ nearing 24,000, the trend is clearly up, but those record gold prices and persistent producer inflation are a loud reminder that the underlying global economy still has structural imbalances that haven't been fixed. The coming weeks, specifically the hearings on April 21 and the Fed meeting on April 28, will reveal if this is a solid foundation or just a peace-related bubble in a world that is only getting more complex. We have to look past the top-line numbers and watch the deeper currents of central bank shifts and semiconductor dominance if we want to navigate what's coming next. And hey, I hope this video helps you on your quest for profits. Catch you on the next one.